Hello. We're back. Welcome to the second episode of the 35 Pokescast. I'm Vic. This is Alex. We're your co-hosts. I didn't say Alex that time, so
You're very close, but you did not,
I was
yes.
very close. I was very fucking close. Um, so we're going to have a pretty standard episode. It's going to be like the previous one. It's going to be a little longer since we do have a special guest star. Um, but I remember that last episode we were talking about Gallade, and guess what, people? Gallade is over. Gallade is now banned from the March meta and was re-rolled into bum bada 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 Alice.
It got re-rolled into Funny Frog. We got Politoed now, which is currently
Yes.
making March supposedly a rain meta now.
Yup. It's black and white OU, people.
It has really become black and white OU at this point.
It's actually just black and white OU. It's kind of ridiculous. Now we
Except
just need Starmie.
except with Sea King instead of Starmie.
So let's go over what makes Politoed such a good Pokemon. Politoed's been able to excel in a lot of metas, specifically doubles due to its role as a rain setter, and it has three abilities: Drizzle, Water Absorb, and Damp. Drizzle is probably the best of these abilities, however, Water Absorb can be useful if you have a water weak team and just need a switch in. Politoed has great defensive stats of a base HP of 90, special defense of 100, and a defense of 75, which, although it doesn't seem very good, it's enough. It's also a pure water type, which is one of the best defensive typings in the game, second only to Steel. So you're getting a lot out of Politoed's typing, despite the fact that its defenses may seem mediocre at first. It's got a speed stat of 70, which doesn't really matter since it's not going to be outspeeding very much, and it's not like you really want it to outspeed very much anyways, as I will go into soon. It has a base attack stat of 75 and a special attack stat of 90, which is okay, but it's not a Pokemon that should be used as an attacker. I feel that Politoed best fills a support role. Alice, what are your thoughts on Politoed? How would you advise our viewers to use it in the current meta?
I think it is quite a silly little guy, as some would say. I believe that it's best to use currently as a rain setter, but I have seen people talk about using Water Absorb as like an anti-rain team.
That
So
is a
like,
very interesting counter meta play. I like that.
there's also been some talk, primarily me, about using Prankster Sunny Day Graph II to
Hmm.
completely counter rain teams if they do come up. Because then the Politoed can't really do much to the Graph II. It's not like it doesn't do anything, but the Graph II can just party shot next turn, and he's completely fine afterwards. And then Politoed has to switch out to set rain again, and then you can get like an electric type or one of the couple of grass types that we have. I am a Lilligant type of gal myself, so I'm very excited to see Lilligant get more play as like a counter rain team, especially with Water Absorb Cacturn being a thing.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be very interesting. I might even run that myself.
Yes, Cacturn is a pretty good mon. It's one of the few Pokemon that has priority this meta. It's primarily
Hmm.
only the water types that have priority, because of Aqua Jet, and even then I don't think many of them get it. So having a Sucker Punch as an option for priority is quite good this meta, especially coming off of a grass type, and with there being not much U-turn usage.
Hmm. It's Politoed is looking to be a great just general support Pokemon and is helping out some great Pokemon in the tier right now. Um a lot of people would first think to use Tatsugiri and Swampert or Samurott with Politoed, which does make a lot of sense, of course. You get amazing water stab. Tatsugiri especially. I saw a bulky Tatsugiri set the other day that was being run on a rain team,
Bulky
and it was
Tatsu.
honestly annihilating my team. I should probably invest in a spin blocker.
That would probably
Anyways,
be good.
What does Politoed do otherwise? Well, it's got some pretty neat moves. It's got things like Perish Song, Scald, Encore, Protect, of course, and it's got great coverage options like Focus Blast, Earth Power, Ice Beam. I believe it gets Grass Knot? No, but it does get Toxic. That's interesting.
It is it
So,
it is like how, because I believe Nat Dex, because we use Nat Dex movesets
yes.
obviously for 35 pokes, and I think like every Pokemon gets toxic basically because Game
Oh,
Freak
absolutely.
just
Yeah.
decided for a while there to be like, nah, give everyone toxic. Like that was a fucking good idea, but
Anyways, I personally use Politoed as a physically bulky Pokemon, as its special defense is already pretty good,
mhm.
and I give it the Rocky Helmet. I like using the moves Scald, Endeavor, Encore, and Protect. Endeavor might not seem very useful at first, but given that Politoed will often find itself in a sticky situation if you fail to switch it in correctly, it can outspeed slower, bulky Pokemon and get off an Endeavor to possibly chip down tanks.
Mm. You
How
see,
do you use Politoed?
I have not used the funny frog yet in any of my teams, but
Interesting.
I would probably use it as a slight rain team against probably with Samurott, because I think Samurot's a really good mod. It's
Oh,
just
absolutely.
Swampert
Samurott stocks are hoping to
kind of
be up after this.
overshadows it due to its typing just being strictly better. Except for that four
Yes,
times grass weakness, and also it is bulkier. But Samurott,
that is fair.
I believe, I don't know if any of its stats are better than Swampert's, but it
Well, it does get
feels like
Megahorn
it.
and X-Scissor.
Yeah, it feels like it hits a lot harder than Swampert. So I believe
Mhm.
its attack stats are better. So Swampert
I don't believe
can,
so.
is it not?
Swampert does have a higher physical attack, I think.
That's wild. Poor,
Well,
poor
anyways,
Samurott.
before we talk too much about Politoed, let's move on to Pokemon that will be good partners for Politoed. So, of course, water types, as we were mentioning earlier, but a
Mhm,
lot of people tend to forget that in rain, Hurricane is an always hitting move, as well as Thunder.
mhm,
Pokemon like Galvantula, or Sensu, and even Politoed itself with Weather Ball can benefit from rain. I would personally recommend using Regice and slotting Thunder over Thunderbolt,
mhm.
so that way it can actually get more out of its already amazing 100 base special attack. And this may be a time for people to stop using Compound Eyes on Galvantula and start using Swarm to get the most out of their Bug Buzzes, since their Thunders will always be hitting.
Yes. The
But I also think that with the rain comes a potential to not only abuse it, but make your Pokemon more bulky. I think that screen sets could be pretty good on some Pokemon pairing with the rain, especially because the Pokemon that are taking advantage of rain aren't always the most bulky, like Orcorio Sensu and Galvantula, as I mentioned earlier.
mhm.
Some screen setters like Rabombi, Mesprit, and um, what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Rodom, yes, Rodom Fan
I
could be pretty helpful.
I completely forget every single time that Rabombi gets screens
Oh
because
yes,
I
it's just not
never
very bulky.
see.
It doesn't
Yeah, I
have
was
a
gonna.
great defensive typing.
You cannot make that the bee work with screens unless you use it as like a suicide lead for screens, and then you're just giving up Rabombi, which is like one of the better
It's one of
Pokemon
the
of the
best
meta.
Pokemon in the meta. It's a great special
So
attacker, yeah.
it is. I guess that is why we do not see screen Rabombi that much.
Anyways, a quick side tangent. What will counter the rain teams of this current meta? I believe the best answer is Palisand, being that it is immune to thunder and has water compaction as an ability, not to mention that it has a special defense of, I think, 120?
Hmm. And also,
No, defense of 110, special defense of 75, HP of 85, but with water compaction and a ground typing, and the fact that it blocks rapid spin, it could be slotted on some anti-rain teams along with Pokemon like Cacturn or Tatsugiri.
Yeah, it's the only issue that you have to worry about is the other Pokemon possibly having an ice type move, like how a decent amount of water
Mhm.
types do get ice type coverage, to where ground types do have to worry about that. Like Palossand does have to worry about getting hit by a Politoed's ice beam if they stay in afterwards. But having the
Absolutely.
option of swapping in Palossand is quite nice actually.
It's a great boon, not to mention that against physically attacking Pokemon like Samurott and Swampert, Palisand gets a defense boost when it switches into a water move, meaning that it can wall them even easier and probably just force them to switch out. If you can predict that switch, then you can heavily take advantage of the game. But I think that's all we're going to talk about for Rain currently and the future of the meta. Politoed will seem to be a dominant force, but we do have that special guest star.
Hmm.
So I'm going to invite them on right now.
There you go. It's back.
So the recording paused.
Yes.
I'm sorry if you guys experienced a little bit of a jarring switch. Um, where did we pause at? I'm just
Right
gonna
before you
re-explain the whole thing.
talked, yeah, the October redo meta.
Okay, so as I was saying, we do have an October Regulation B tournament coming up, and it is actually happening right now. Yeah, it's happening right now. It's a 32-person tournament, so I figure who better to invite on the podcast than somebody who is incredibly well versed in October Regulation B and is running the tournament. Everybody, please welcome Thunder.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. But yes, our friendly Portuguese friend is on the podcast. Thunder, how does it feel to be a special guest star?
Okay, I think I'll start by presenting myself. I'm Thunder. I'm a player that joined in October during Regulation A, and I'm running right now the Regulation B tournament. It's a 32 people tournament, as Vic mentioned, and it's so it actually started today. So, and we have a form for substitutes in case you want to gamble and have an actual chance of joining. And I think that's all I have to say about the tournament.
Awesome. Well,
Uh,
if you guys out there would like to join the tournament as a substitute player, then absolutely sign up. I think that I've heard the October Regulation B meta is overall very balanced and pretty fun to play. In fact, I was looking to get into it myself. And that being said, neither me or Alice really know very much about the October Regulation B metagame. So, Thunder, could you possibly explain some of the top Pokemon and their roles in the metagame?
oh, yeah, for sure. You guys both joined very recently in 35 Pokes. And I'm actually one of the most experienced players in October Regulation B. At the time, I was the top in games. I believe I would still be today in terms of games played overall. And so I have a good. There are some obviously controversial ones. There are ones that I would put above some other players, ones that I would put below. For example, some people consider Mr. Rhyme a B tier mon, when I consider it a C tier mon. But overall, I feel like most people would agree with my opinion. I'm obviously the top one Pokemon in the meta is Clefable.
Yeah,
Clefable
I
is
I think Clefable is mostly used as a wish passer, right?
Uh, kinda. That I mostly use it as a wish passer. I always, not always. I've run with other sets, but I usually run a set of protect, wish, teleport, and moonblast. which is very nice. It allows you to wish pass into Pokemons like Doublade, Emboar that really want to hit hard but don't have a way to heal themselves. Uh, but it's not. It's far from just a wish passer. Uh, if with the recent Zetu ban, which I will go into in a minute, we don't have many Calm Mind abusers, and the Clefable is obviously the best one of them. With access to a good bulk, it usually runs bold on those sets, so it can resist hits from both sides. Access to Magic Guard that allows them to basically shut down status moves that would usually shut down Calm Mind Sleeper, like Toxic. Um, it means that they can switch in freely into mons that they resist without having problems with hazards, and allows them to run leftovers more freely.
Awesome.
So the Calm Mind Clefable turns into a really scary setup sweeper. It really only needs to run Flamethrower and Moonblast. So the last slot is usually a healing move in soft boiled, and it can steamroll games if you are not careful around it.
Well, absolutely. Clefable has access to the elemental beams and Ice Beam, Flamethrower, and Thunderbolt, so it's got some great coverage. Am I also correct in assuming that due to its unaware ability, it is a great wall?
Actually, no. In October Regulation B, unaware is considered a noob trap. The reason
Really?
why, the reason why unaware is not a good ability in the tier is, well, we have two unaware users. Clefable usually runs Magic Guard since it's a busted ability that allows it to freely switch in without having to resort to using heavy duty boots. But the other one is a mon that is more characterized for his unaware capabilities, which is Clodsire. I think when I say Clodsire, most people will think, oh, an unaware wall. But actually, no. Most Clodsires actually run Water Absorb. And the reason for that is pretty simple. There are three great special attackers in the tier. There are obviously more than three special attackers, but three that are really great. And those are Motom, Roserade, and Dragalge.
And
And
Clodsire resists all of their stabs, or is outright immune to them, correct?
uh,
Except for
well, except
Dragalge's dragon.
yeah, and the grass types
Mhm.
because
because of its
yeah, it
secondary
doesn't
jump, right?
resist. Yeah,
Oh, right. I'm that's my bad. Well, it's
yeah,
certainly got some good resistances. I believe it has a base 120 special defense, right?
exactly. But here's the thing: all three of them
Oh,
have one thing
100.
in
My
common.
bad.
All of them have one great thing in common.
And what would that be?
Roserade and Rotom Mao run Leaf Storm, and Dragalge runs Draco Meteor. The reason
Oh,
why
so
that's
it can easily
important,
sponge their hits and get them to lower their special attack?
exactly, if you run unaware, then the special attack drop will be ignored, and those mons can two-hit KO you. With their extremely strong stabs, in particular Dragalge, which is considered practically unwallable, it's very important that you get every single bit of uh, edge that you can into those mons. And the Clodsire cannot afford to run unaware, and the Clefable to a lesser extent, even though Clefable does lose to the poison types and doesn't like Rotom Mao because of Trick. Um, but in particular, Clodsire really wants to get that edge, and he can't. If he wants to abuse the drops from their strongest moves, he can't run unaware. That's
All
a
right.
very important factor.
I didn't realize that one simple ability change would have such a drastic influence on the viability of a Pokemon.
It actually does, and Water Absorb has also other more niche uses. Like Poliwrath is a good mon in the tier. It's actually really scary mon if you are abusing the rain, which is like it's manual rain is absolutely a playable playstyle in October Regulation B, and you it's a very scary belly drum sweeper. But the fact that Clodsire can take its stab fighting, and with Water Absorb can be immune, makes it a not the most consistent but decent check to both to Poliwrath and to the other Rain Dance sweeper, which is Luminion. Luminion
Oh,
is the
Lumineon is
second.
a threat?
Luminion is an actual threat. It
That's
was
very
slept
interesting.
on during most of the meta. It was very slept on, but at the end, like when the tour was starting, the first tour, not this one, Luminion actually started popping off, and we ended the meta with the Luminion at 85% win rate, which is
Wow.
the highest win rate we have. It's basically only run one set, but it was such a consistent set that you really couldn't just not fear it. It was Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, and then the other two moves that you just pick from its move pool, usually Hurricane and U-Turn. So you just run a choice spec set and hit hard on Rain, because Rain boosted Hydro Pumps from even with its middling 69 special attack, it
Nice.
hits hard. Yeah, nice. Um, it's a
That's really interesting. That's something that I love about 35 Pokes. It gives Pokemon that are really often neglected a chance to shine.
This
And
is
while I would love to talk about Lumineon more, Alice, we do have something more important on the docket, and that is, of
mm,
course, um, the players that Thunder thinks will be the best in this tournament. So, Thunder, with what
oh
little time that we've got left for your segment, I'm sorry, we kind of used up a chunk of it.
it's fine.
What players do you think are going to be performing well in this tournament? And do you have anybody that you'd like to give a little shout out to?
Obviously, Shura will be a really strong player. Ricky won the last tournament, but it won a finals against Shura. The finals was a 3-2. It was a best of five with win Ricky going to game five and winning. So it was a really close set, and Ricky lost in pools to Shura. So Shura is obviously the favorite to win in terms of past results. Another player that obviously is really strong and it's weird for me to say it, but it's me. I believe I'm also a strong contender. Listen.
I
Well,
get it. I get it. No, I don't doubt your
like
strength. Absolutely.
okay. I lost in pools on the last tournament, but my pool had the two finalists. And I, and
Okay,
I
that's
and I was considered like top three of the metagame. We were all the top three of the metagame in the same pool. So it
that's
makes some
pretty cool.
sense.
Well, I don't know
On,
why they put you guys like that, but
it was
it
a
is
weird decision
interesting.
by Jay. And then the fourth player of the I think went out with the six with 06. They didn't. They dropped all the sets because we were just that good. Um, but other player that I believe can do a number on this is Ryu. Ryu
Oh,
built
I love Ryu. They're
what
so cool.
is yeah, they are really cool. Built what is in my opinion one of, if not the best team in the entire metagame, which is the Ryu Sand team. Um, with and that's a really strong team that I have a really hard time beating, and they do know really well how to play it. they went to semifinals and just lost to Shura, so they have a great shot again. Other smaller players that I want to just say that they to keep an eye out for are EM with their Embor usage, which is one of is the best Embor user of the format. Um, Jay is also an interesting contender since they had, I believe, the second highest win rate on the dock, just behind Shura. Uh, the in the I believe Scarlet can actually pull off a good number here, even though they were not at the time. They have been playing October Regulation B a fair bit during the casual matches we did for preparation for the tour, and they learned the meta really well and have good teams that they can actually use. So I believe
Awesome.
they can, even though they are not older players in the tournament, I believe they can absolutely be a player to be scared of in the early rounds.
Well, thank you very much, Thunder. Me and Alice really appreciate you coming on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say to our viewers?
Uh, no, really, just watch the tournament. It will be a really fun one. I'm sure
Absolutely
of
do.
that.
Anyways, would you like to stick around for our final segment of the day in Silly Strats?
Yeah, I can stay. Why not?
All right. Alice, you haven't really gotten much time to speak today,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to let you disclose our silly strat of the day.
Um, the silly strat of the day does include the newest member of March's 35 Pokecast, which is the funny frog themselves, Polytoad. Vic here told me a little bit before we started recording of this so-called silly strat, and I must admit, it is quite of a silly strat. I may think about running it myself as well because I very much enjoy this amount of silliness. But without further ado, the silliest strat of our current podcast has to be Paris Song Whirlpool Polytoad, which
Oh, I've heard about that.
yes,
I feel like it's one of people told me it's actually the best set on Polytoad.
is it actually? I have, to be fair, I have not played much March, so I do not know if, especially after the Polytoad announcement, which was literally yesterday. So I can definitely see it having a Whirlpool to keep someone in to make sure that they don't leave after setting up Paris Song is if you try to stay in to like whittle down your Paris Song counts and try to do damage on Polytoad, you can get unexpectedly trapped in and killed by if the Polytoad user survives the attack you're using and then retaliates with a Whirlpool.
And
So,
again, remember that Politoed has one of the best defensive typings in the game in pure water. So it's going to be taking a lot of neutral hits, and there isn't much electric or grass attacking moves in this. Sorry, there aren't many electric or grass attacking moves in this format that can really do that much to Politoed. However, if it chooses to run Drizzle, it can get worked against if the Pokemon that you are getting trapped with has Thunder.
mhm.
Yeah, I've actually seen some gameplay of Polytoad with Perish Song. Lily sent me some earlier today, and I'm gonna say the best Polytoad counter is Polytoad with Water Absorb, so it prevents the the actual uh, trapping of the Perish Trap strat,
I was
which is very silly.
yeah, I was thinking that as well. Like Tatu Storm Drain, Cacturne Water Absorb could also really work as a counter to Perish Trapping. But Perish Trapping is quite a silly strat, but in all honesty, you can also just avoid it by simply switching out of whoever after the Perish song goes up, because you know what's about to happen. You know you're about to get Whirlpool to trap you in so that you perish the Perish
Well,
song. But
to
I
be
mean,
fair, if you switch out on Whirlpool, you get trapped with the Mon switching in.
This is true, but you have a lot more
That's why I would
agency.
suggest to viewers to run more U-turn and Volt Switch Pokemon in this meta.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, a reminder that a silly strat does not have to be niche for it to be silly. And although, while I do agree with Thunder that this is probably going to be the most dominant Politoed set, simply because we just haven't seen anything like it this meta, and it's quite enticing, it is the silly strat for today. Alice, how are we looking at on time?
Currently just 20 seconds past 30 minutes of
All right, I think we're probably going to end it there. Thunder, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. I hope you
Thank
enjoyed
you for
sticking around for
inviting
the
me.
silly segment. What?
Thank you for inviting me to
Of
the podcast.
course.
It was a pleasure being here.
Yes. And we will be having more special guests in our next episode, of course, and every episode pretty much, if we can manage to find one. Viewers, make sure to beware of the funny frog. Run Water Absorb if you want to counter it, and run Drizzle if you want to run a rain team. Prankster Grafii with Sunny Day or possibly even Magmortar could be weather counters to it, or possibly Snowscape Regice. But if you don't like playing into the weather meta, I would suggest slotting Thunder on some of your Pokemon just in case you get matched up against Politoed, Samurott, or the like. With that, have fun facing all of those 100% accurate Hurricane users, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.